This is the Blue, my Twingo, my future daily driver, and my personal nugget of misery, joy. Joy. Well, for now, I'm not yet regretting this purchase, so I decided that I want the full nugget experience. That's why it's gonna be my daily driver for a while. Which means that at minimum, it needs to be street legal and hopefully reliable. I already did some maintenance on the engine, so now I have to focus on getting it through tech inspection. And later on, I want to add some stuff to make it more ergonomic. Okay, with all that said, it's time to get to work. So let's go through the list of things that need fixing. First thing would be that passenger window. Now, I know I said at first I'll be focusing on getting it through tech inspection, but I kinda want this fixed as soon as possible. And don't get me wrong, I quite enjoy the look of wood in the interior, just not like this.
Bentley.
Next important thing will be rust prevention. Unlike the green, the blue is really solid when it comes to not having rust. The front subframe, the rear axle and the body itself are overall super well preserved. The rear brake line holder is a little on the fence, but we can eventually fix that. Interestingly, main problems come from up top. It looks like the paint that gives the blue its signature name was quality-wise about the same like everything else on the car. And it started to peel off in some places where the water was pooling up. Mainly above the hood and at the back by the tailgate hinges. There are also these very sussy cracks on the right side. And because it is way easier to prevent rust than to remove it, I decided to fix this now. Next up would be the horn, which has been broken ever since I've bought it and is a critical thing I'll need working if I want to pass the tech inspection. And another thing like that were both the front lower ball joints.
Oh no.
As both wheels had some pretty significant play.
Oh god. About the same.
With all the things laid out, I wanted to start with what I thought was going to be the easiest thing to fix, that being the horn. To get better access to the only bolt keeping it there, I wanted to remove the fog light. But because that didn't work, you'll later see why, I decided to remove the whole bumper.
Rusty boy. Ain't he a sweetheart?
When I got access to the horn, I could undo the single bolt and get it out. To see if the horn itself worked, I hooked it up to a battery booster.
Fire in hole! Oh.
The horn itself turned out to be good, so I decided to clean up the electric contact, which is a common issue on older Renaults. I used some contact spray and fine sandpaper, and sure enough, that did the job.
Fire in the hole!
Then I wanted to see what was up with the passenger window. The Twingo is an older car and also made to be super cheap, which means that all door panel bolts are clearly visible, which I'm a big fan of. After getting the panel off, I unplugged and unbolted the window mechanism so that I could take it out and test it.
Okay, there we go. Let's open it up to see what's going on.
And so, I figured out what the problem was. It was this bushing that holds the mechanism. It was all mangled, so that the whole mechanism had play and the gears didn't have enough contact. Because everything else looked good, and because I know a very talented individual who can make me a new bushing, I decided I'm not gonna buy the whole new mechanism.
Look, I have all sorts of funny supplies here, because we're gonna be painting. There's quite a bit of places on this car where the paint is...
The man in question did appear next week to help out with the car, so I filled him in on the task at hand, and I also explained why the fog light is missing.
This is a fog lamp, right? It's a factory extra if you're buying a Twingo, right? This is a luxury item, right? You should be expected that these things, right, when you have a Twingo, these things are luxury items that desire special attention. So Renault designed this in a very interesting way, right? I mean, it works for as long as it works. They put threaded studs in here out of metal. However, they forgot to think that in a couple, or maybe they just didn't care, probably they didn't care, that in a couple of years this is gonna rust. And the nut is gonna weld on with rust on this stud. And so, there's a couple of boys here who are, they spin freely.
I decided we first focus on painting the area above the hood and under the trunk, and if we'll still have some time, we would also do the remaining spots. First we removed the hood, and I started with the cleaning while Jeff googled how to remove the tailgate.
How to quickly remove the outer CV joint of a drive?
No, we don't need to do that. There was enough drive shaft business on this channel.
It was actually very simple, so after we figured it out, we removed the plastic panel, disconnected the wiring, tied some string to it, removed the gas shocks, and unbolted the tailgate.
So there's leverage. There we go. Yeah, we have to glue it up real good.
When everything was thoroughly cleaned, it was time to sand off any rust that had already formed.
Probably cannot work.
And while we were doing that, the third member of the Nuggetopolis council appeared.
Adam's got the new mod for the green. He's gonna test fit it on the blue. As you can see, it does not fit the blue steam.
Oh, it doesn't fit at all.
Fucking hell. How much is it too small by? A lot.
No, it'll fit. You just gotta stretch it a bit.
We're gonna work it in.
I think maybe it's best idea to try it on the green.
Yeah, just
It's one and done.
yeah, and then because probably when you're gonna take it off, it's not gonna. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The key of the green is.
Oh yeah, it's top secret, so you'll have to blur it, right?
Oh yeah.
You'll have to blur the key. It's so nice, but
Have you missed your son? It probably doesn't have I probably disconnected the battery so it doesn't drain.
okay. This.
The main event while we're here.
So here's the bad spot. So we're gonna just put that spot. Oh shit. Oh yeah.
If this breaks while you're driving, it's gonna hit you in the eye like a slingshot.
It does look good.
How does it feel?
Like a proper race car.
And if you're wondering if the green has the same problem as the blue, well, the answer is kinda. There are some spots where the paint is missing, but it's not nearly as bad as the blue. I'm guessing it's mostly because the green has metallic paint, which is also covered by a layer of clear coat, which does bring some issues of its own. With the daily quota of tomfoolery reached, it was time to get back to sanding. That's when I noticed a suspicious looking crack in the seam sealer next to the left hood holder and decided to investigate it.
We are discovering
The treasure.
the treasure. Yeah, exactly. More, look at this.
Let's
Well, I mean, what do you expect? They didn't paint this.
It wasn't just the rust causing us problems, the paint that was still on the car was still peeling off in some places when a little pressure was applied. So to make sure we wouldn't have any problems after we painted, we really had to scrub everything off.
It's for fun, you know. When someone comes and knows what it is, it's funny.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
When we removed as much rust as we could, I cleaned up all the surfaces with isopropyl alcohol and then applied some rust converter.
It's a milkshake.
Yeah, I told you it's a milkshake. We're gonna everywhere where there is rust.
After it was dry, I wiped everything off again.
I like this car. Yeah, me too. But I don't like the people who made it and the people who worked on it before.
Then it was time for primer. I usually go for the rust converter, 2-component epoxy primer and acrylic paint combo, and I've always had good results with it. After everything was primered up, it was left to dry overnight. Next morning, everything was nice and dry, which meant that I could finally paint it. After it was all done, I wanted to see what was going on with those rust cracks on the right side quarter panel. As I kept excavating, I figured out what happened here. The car was probably hit on this panel, which is evident by the marks on the inside where they pulled the metal to straighten it out, and then repaired it. But because no one gives two shits about twongies, it was done in the simplest way possible, with tons of filler. And I think it was applied over rust, which then just spread under it and cracked it. Because I realized I was going to have to remove a lot of filler, I just went at it with a flap disc on an angle grinder. I removed as much material as needed to reach the 100% healthy metal. Then I applied the rust converter, waited for it to dry, sanded a little bit more, applied another round of rust converter, and when it dried, put primer over it. While I waited for it to dry, I cleaned the rubber seal that goes around the upper part of the engine bay, and then tackled both lower ball joints. This should be pretty easy, just take the wheel off, undo the bolt holding the ball joint in the knuckle, pop it out, and unbolt the two bolts on the lower control arm. Then you do everything in the opposite order with the new part. Sadly, there were problems with almost every part of the process. I couldn't get the bolt out, I couldn't get the ball joint out, when I put the new one in it wouldn't pop in the knuckle, so I had to pop it in first, then thread the nuts on the bolts and used some gentle persuasion to sit nicely. Surely the other side was easier, right? I just couldn't pop out the ball joint. But after about 2 hours of prying and hammering, it finally came out and the battle was won. This just perfectly sums up the experience of working on your car when you're already on the 4th hour of that simple 30-minute job and you just think to yourself why you had to put yourself through this. Because it was already night, the paint was already mostly dry as well as the primer, which meant that I could paint the last spot and then start the reassembly. And as I'm reassembling this, I can say that it looks pretty good for what it is. Obviously we weren't expecting any kind of show car finish the way we did it. The most important thing is that it will prevent rust from spreading, and besides the spot on the quarter panel, it's not really in a visible place, so it doesn't really matter that much. I'd also like to thank you for watching. In the next couple of videos we'll probably be able to put the blue on the road, so stay tuned for more twongy shenanigans. For now, I'll just say thanks again for watching, get yourself some stickers, and have a great rest of your day.